Oh,
Me.
yeah, it's recording. I see it. All right.
Bart, how you doing?
Great. How are you doing, Grant? So nice
Just
to meet you.
fantastic.
Yes, finally.
Yeah, good to talk to you. So let's go through our little histories of what you've been doing in the field and what I've been doing in the field. And I guess you're
Yes.
famous for the famous, what is it, 80 whatever sighting of the triangle?
Yes, the Belgium is the Belgian wave you refer to?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's in the 90s, 1990s.
Okay.
We had a UFO flap or a wave over here. Yeah, that's the
Were you
biggest
involved in
thing.
that? Were you involved in that?
No, no, no. I am now 43
Okay.
years old, so I was a little bit too young.
Yeah.
But I have studied the case,
Okay.
and the great thing about it is that it's got the police involved,
Okay.
and the police was co-working with the at that time the UFO group SOBAP.
Okay. They're not around anymore?
No, they're not around anymore. We are the only thing now in Belgium. Our organization is BUFOC. That's BUFOC. That's the
Okay. And
Belgian UFO connection. And we are currently operating in England, in the Netherlands, and in Belgium.
okay. Wow. So in just English, or I guess you have other languages there. You would be
Yeah, we are. Belgium has three languages. We have
okay.
German, Dutch, and French.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So you have to know a lot of stuff. We just have French and English here, and unless you're in Quebec, nobody uses the French. So we're sort
yeah,
of almost become Americans here. It's sort of.
yeah. And
But so
where?
how big is your group? How long's it been going on for?
Well, we are busy. We are operating since 2010, 2011 was the start of the group.
Okay.
But it was initially, I was studying the files much earlier, the UFO files or the UAP files. And we do skywatch procedures in the field.
Okay.
And we investigate crop circles in Wiltshire every year.
Oh, so you go over to England every year?
Yeah, every year we go with the group to England, and we study the crop circles for their authenticity.
Yeah.
We have tools to do that.
Okay.
There are man-made crop circles, of course, like you know,
Yeah.
and but there are genuine circles that are unknown where they came from.
How do you distinguish one from the other? Like you're saying tools. So what procedure do you use?
Well, I have one here. I will check. It's basically observing what you see in the circle, and I'll check the tool for you, so you can see it for yourself.
Okay. Okay.
It could be interesting. Normally, I will have it somewhere in this. You have to keep a close watch in the circles because, and the best thing is a fresh circle that
Okay.
doesn't have a lot of people walking up and down it. So this is the
Yeah.
tool. I don't know if you see it.
Oh, I see. Yeah. Yeah. We can see. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I will turn it around because there are more things,
Wow.
variables.
Okay.
And the thing that you see, if it's man-made, they
Yeah.
use stumping boards.
Yeah.
That is, they it's like they put a rope in the center,
Yeah.
a pole with a rope, a
Yeah.
stick, basically, and then they walk around it with stumping boards, and then you see in the grain that it's broken,
Okay.
or at least it has marks on them, like lines or
Oh, yeah.
stuff.
Okay.
So if you see that, it's not a genuine. And with genuine, I mean man-made.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's your next? What are the other procedures you're using there?
Well, we try electromagnetic readings
Okay.
for starters. So we check if there are anomalies
Uh-huh.
present. Electricity, electromagneticity. You have radio waves, microwaves. All these things are checked.
Yeah.
And then you have the expulsion cavities in the grain itself. Like I will show on a picture, I think I can show you here. This one here,
Yeah, yeah,
it is exploded from the inside.
right.
And that means the water inside the plant,
Yeah,
the heat of the connection with something is so big that it explodes from the inside because it's boiling.
yeah.
And that's not normal.
So let me ask you, if you're inside a circle and you have these expulsion cavities, is it all the grain that's affected that way inside the circle? Like every stalk would have the same
Oh,
effect?
that's a good question, Grant, because you need to check if the percentage of the grain is doing
Okay.
that. So if you have like 10% of the
Yeah,
grain, then it could be natural, although strange.
yeah, yeah,
But if it's like 70%, 60%, you can be sure that it's not normal. And every
yeah,
farmer will tell you that.
yeah.
And furthermore, you have also phototropism. And what is that? Phototropism is that the sun, if you have a plant, the sun, it will always grow to the sun.
Okay,
It will
okay.
bend. It will
Yeah,
bend. And if the bend is on top of the grain, then it's okay, it's normal, it's natural. But if it's on the bottom, to the soil, more to the soil, the first, how do you say in English, the point where the grain is can bend,
okay, okay.
and that is like 30 degrees off to completely 90 degrees, then that's not normal. And you have to ask the farmers that they always tell you it's not normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
What would be the percentage of hoax ones to real ones?
I would say, because there is a lot of discussion in the field
Yeah,
over these things, I would say if you have 40% that is bent in that way, I don't know that a person can do that with the plants. That's not possible,
yeah,
my vision. But other people will say 60%, other investigators. But basically, the good thing to do is to talk to the farmers over there,
okay.
because these people, they lose money
Yeah,
because of the circles.
yeah,
And you feel that if you talk to them, they say, yeah, we saw something like a light yesterday at night, a light,
okay.
and we thought it was strange, and the animals acted strange. And then all of a sudden, a corner of our field was gone. It was a circle with a
Wow,
pattern.
wow.
And then they have the problem that a lot of people are visiting that place,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they damage the other crops.
yeah.
So we checked if some farmers did this on purpose to get money out of it or something.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's possible. But
doesn't make sense.
most of the time, they are very angry
Yeah.
about it. So that's a good, I say, a good thing to know that it's genuine.
Do a lot of them report the balls of light and the cattle reacting strange?
Yeah, there is a lot of high strangeness concerning the creation of these circles, Grant.
Okay.
Um, if it is when we check the circles, that is like a crime scene, and it's happened already.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's for the people that were present when it was formed. That is very important to interview them and put this in the files. So we had situations where we met a little boy. You can see that on our website. It was last year in Danebury in England.
okay,
Our group was sleeping in the morning, and we got a phone call that a new circle was formed, a fresh one in Danebury.
okay.
So we hasted to get there. We were
Yeah,
Speedy Gonzalez to
yeah,
go
yeah,
there, and it was like a virgin. It was laying there. You can see it on the pictures. A
yeah,
green field. Nothing happened.
yeah.
And one of our team members was inside the crop circle, and we were waiting outside. It is like 100, 300 meters from our position.
Okay.
And a small boy was running through the field towards him. And he was shouting, "You cannot enter the field like this. You have to walk through the tram lines that are the lines from the,
Yeah.
yeah,
Machines. Yeah.
yeah." And the boy wasn't respecting that. So my colleague was shouting, no, no, you have to return. And then,
Yeah.
so, but I immediately saw something was off key with that boy. And his mother was also at the side of the field. And we interviewed the boy, and he said that he saw something hovering the day before,
Wow.
and the circle wasn't there yet. So what do we do, Grant? We check for drones. Is there an area? Is that an area where drones fly?
Yeah.
We let the boy describe the vehicle. He was immediately talking like this. It's doing this.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
not
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
flying. It's hovering.
Yeah.
So that's, you know what I'm talking about. It's a good
Yeah.
case. And we said, do you know what a drone is? Yeah, of course I know what a drone is. It was not a drone. It was a disc.
Wow.
So there you have two connections. You have the ship
Yeah.
and the circle that was fresh, and we investigated it. So it was beautiful.
Wow. Well, what's your impression? Why do you think this is going on? Have you got any guesses as to what might be going on?
You mean the circle makers or the
Yeah,
message?
well, like why would I can see why hoaxers would do it, but why would, say, an alien intelligence want to do this? Have you must have thought about this a lot of times.
Yeah, I always look for patterns in the files to understand this, to better understand it. And what I have found out is that the circles, they act like a sort of bus stop. Like if you stay there long enough, and I mean, get your tent out, sleep
Yeah.
there tonight, do skywatch,
Yeah.
something is coming to you, like a bus that's
Wow.
pulling down on the stop point. And a lot of investigators have had that experience. I had it myself with high strangeness and with a large black triangle. And I mean large, huge.
So tell me the story. Tell me that story. I hadn't heard that.
Well, the story, uh, basically, to understand it, you have to know that the military is involved over there.
Okay.
What do I mean with military? The whole of Wiltshire, the county, is
Yeah.
surrounded by bases, military bases, and dumps, deep underground military bases.
Okay.
So that's a reason why they are there,
Okay.
and they check us out. They don't bother us, but they check us out. I have seen jeeps standing at side of valleys with dark windows, taking photos and
Yeah.
stuff. Okay, so that's happening over there. We know that. Um, the circles are like, they don't know what's happening. The military is just a phenomenon, and they are very knowledgeable about it, that it happens in certain time frames in the year. It happens in the season, but it creates distortions like electromagnetism and stuff. So when we visit a circle at daylight, most of the time we go there at night also, and we don't blabber about it on the internet. We just
Yeah.
keep it silent. So we go there at night, and we set up gear like skywatch gear to make
Yeah.
signal. And you know what I mean with signal? It's frequency, just frequency. And
Is
then you
there a
have,
certain frequency you're using, or have you
yeah,
discovered that one works better than the other?
no, not particularly.
Okay.
It's just you have to use CTS, coherent thought sequencing.
Okay.
You meditate together, and that's a brainwave that's coming out, a very
Yeah.
strong one, and you have to practice it. It's not easy. Like Stephen Greer says, it's easy, but it's not so easy. You have to get a good group together.
Okay.
It
And how
takes.
many would be in your group?
We work with 5 to 10 people, but we love small groups,
Yeah.
strong players, if you get me.
Yeah. It's almost like, it sounds like a seance circle where they use closed circles where, unless you're been trained and they don't let anybody just come along because they're interested, because
No, no,
you
no.
sort of,
We,
you
we
affect the
never,
vibration or the,
yeah,
it, almost like the CE5s that the Rama group uses, where you're using meditation to raise the frequency, and a seance you're using music to raise the frequency. So you're using this, and where did you get this what is it? Greer's protocols are you using, or is it somebody else? Or you made up your own protocols?
I love Greer, and I follow his work, of course,
Yeah.
and he's done a lot, but it's like a crossover. We did it before him. I practiced it a long time ago because I had my first vision, my first UFO encounter when I was 8 years old, Grant.
Okay.
And but let me finish this story. So you go into the circle at day, then you go at night, you set up gear,
Yeah.
you make frequency, you use the CTS, and then you basically wait like a fisherman. You just wait. And at that point, that was 2015 in the circle at night,
Yeah.
the military, they always check us out at night with helicopters over there. Yeah, and
Okay.
that's sometimes it's annoying because they make a lot of noise.
Yeah.
And they are like, you have seen Rambo, the movies, the Apache helicopter
Yeah.
with
Yeah. Yeah.
wings and the rockets.
Yeah.
It's like wartime. Eh? It's like,
Wow.
really, what is coming over here? And Chinooks with two propellers.
Wow.
So
Unmarked? Are they black unmarked helicopter, or are they just not even
sometimes,
hiding it?
sometimes they don't have marks on them.
Okay.
Sometimes, yeah. But that's mostly at night.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, in the daytime, it's basically military. And they what they do is they come next to the circle, they fly next to the circle like this, like my hand, like I'm the circle, my face, they come next to me and they fly away again. And it has an interval of 10 minutes and then they come back.
Okay.
And at one point in 2015, we were making signal. This was happening. The military
Yeah.
was present. And all of a sudden, it stopped.
Wow.
No more noise. It was basically nature. And all of a sudden, I saw at the horizon a black stripe coming towards us, a
Yeah.
very flat line coming closer.
Yeah.
And I said we were with 8 to 10 people, I think, at that point. And we had
Okay.
the headlamps. So I shouted, everybody close the lights. And what is coming towards us? Let's observe this because skywatchers are really observant.
Yeah.
And it was a huge black triangle. I know all the stealth fighters, the ones that are known, because there are unknown, of course. So you have to question that. And it was not known, for starters. It was like die cast.
Yeah.
No, it was 100 meters above us, and it floated. It was not flying; it was floating, like, and it made a little zoom at the end, a humming sound.
Okay.
And we were taking pictures at that point, and all the pictures were scrambled.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
Yeah, by the electromagnetism, I
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah.
And Jan Harzan of MUFON, he told me in Barcelona a few months ago that keep the pictures. He says, keep the pictures, even if they are scrambled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who knows what we might do with them later?
Yeah. Yeah. That's right. It's true.
Yeah, so I kept them. But we have an audio recording of the humming sound.
Oh, wow.
And we have 8 to 10 people who saw it. So it's not, it's true, it happened. And when the triangle was flying over us, we were in the dark in a crop circle.
Yeah.
You couldn't see the stars at one point. It was
Wow.
the wingspan was like broad, and it
And how
had
low would it be?
100 meters above us.
100 meters is pretty low.
Yeah. And it had no markings. It was gliding. It was not flying, and it was surreal, Grant. It was really
Yeah.
a surreal feeling. But that wasn't the end of the story. When the triangle disappeared at the other horizon, it was again a stripe, and it flew away. Our team experienced high strangeness, but very abnormal high strangeness. One of the persons that was present was a strong medium
Okay.
woman, and
Okay.
she saw little persons walking in the grain with red eyes, and they were like 1.5 meters maximum
Wow.
of
Okay.
height max. And she went into a fear, a panic, and she was used to see things. And she immediately walked away in the tram line, 100 meters out of the circle, and at night. So we had to separate the team in two parts. I said walk after her, one of the team
Yeah.
members, and we stayed behind to clear the gear out to put everything back in the cases.
Yeah.
And one of our members is a scientist, a geologist, and he's very if he thinks that it's not possible, that it is man-made or earthly or something, he will
Yeah.
tell it. He will. He's not into the woo-woo stuff.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And I need him for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep it balanced. Yeah.
Yeah, keep it balanced. And he said he had hearing problems all of his life because now he has a hearing device.
Oh yeah.
And he said he heard clicking sounds in his bad ear.
Wow.
And that was very strange. And he was a bit flabbergasted by the whole affair.
Wow.
So you can imagine the following days we were all talking at the meetings. What has happened to us? What is this? And I
Wow.
asked Jim Peniston, what do you think? Because he has a background in military vehicles. What do you think it is? And Nick Pope and stuff. And all the people, the players, they say, I don't know. It's kind of strange to have experienced that. So we're still in the dark about it, Grant.
Wow. What percentage would you have in terms of having, say, an event after you're in a crop circle where you stay there and something weird happens? Is it fairly often, or?
Well, that's a good question, because you need sequences. You need to work in sequences.
Yeah.
What do I mean with sequence? If you go once, nothing will happen.
Yeah.
If you do it on a regular basis, it builds up. And we had like we use military gear like night vision, walkie-talkies.
Yeah.
Good gear. What I mean professional gear.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we had strange encounters with these devices, really strange things happening to them. Like at one time we were skywatching in a forest that was in Belgium.
Yeah.
The location is secret. And it was in the middle of the forest, there's an open space and it's huge. And we were setting up the gear, and all of a sudden the walkies started to be active.
Okay.
They gave a buzzing, like not voices, just a buzzing sound.
Oh.
Static, really, just static. But it lasted for hours, the static.
Wow.
And that's it's not like there's a road nearby or an airplane that's always crossing, because we can check that out. And all of a sudden we hear wind chime sounds through the walkie.
Wow.
Like they are connecting through frequencies in like in ethnic tools, sound tools.
Okay. This is coming through the walkie-talkies?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I have discovered that they like, with they I mean extraterrestrial or interdimensional, like how do you want to put it? They like that you make the same sound, you record it, what they set out,
okay.
You record that, and then you put it to the walkies and play it backwards. Yes, not backwards, you replay it. Yeah. And then it's fairly possible that the encounter will enlarge, because I'm not sure that the extraterrestrials think they understand how we communicate.
Yeah.
That's my opinion, at least. Yeah.
But, you're using this CTS. How long do you go for that? Do you do an hour or more? Because that's pretty hard to keep up in terms of doing that kind of stuff. And a lot of people will give up and start sky watching and not paying attention and stuff like that.
That's not good. You need focus.
Yeah.
And with focus, I mean at least 1 or 2 hours.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah, it's like when we are working at night in a forest or in an open field, it's like we're not there at first.
Oh,
If people would cross the field at another point, perhaps they would miss us. They would not
yeah,
see us unless we use a strong laser or something,
yeah,
which we own, of course. But we're very silent, and the first 2 hours is the hard work.
yeah.
We need to get a frequency out that is clean, and
Yeah.
it's very focused. And the focus is important for the extraterrestrials. They like that.
Have you got that protocol written down on your website?
No, no.
Yeah, because that's interesting because it does match up with other, I call them contact modalities, where you're making a contact with whatever the intelligence is that it's everybody can do it. The signal is there, but
Yeah,
it's the ability to reduce the noise in the signal in order to pick it up. So
yeah,
that's why I call it contact modality. And you guys have developed one that is basically the same as what everybody else is doing.
yeah.
And I'm glad you guys are keeping it up in terms of doing it properly, because a lot of times people end up in skywatch situations where they're more interested in watching the sky and shooting lasers around and stuff like that when they're supposed to be getting rid of the noise.
Yeah. The noise is also from the inside, Grant. Your emotions
Yeah,
and your thoughts can be very disturbing to the signal. So you have to control emotions and passions when you're on the field working. The first hours,
yeah.
you have to be serene and together like one heartbeat.
Wow,
That's very important.
beautiful.
And if one person is off key in that regard, then it will affect things.
Beautiful. I'm glad to hear you say that. I agree totally with you. That is what I found as well. Go
Oh,
back to you. You're talking now about yourself at 8 years old. How do you get dragged into this? And do you think that you may have some sort of, whatever you want to call it, a soul contract or some sort of purpose here that you're here to do something? Have you ever had that feeling? A lot of people do, where they,
yeah, a lot of times. When I was 8 years old, when it happened, I will explain that a little bit later.
yeah,
It was like I couldn't live in the world like a normal kid anymore.
wow,
I was like charged with something, like a vision, and like it basically it's like Christ that tells you the poor people of mind are blessed because they don't know.
yeah,
And like if you know, you can't return to the unknown. So
that's right,
that's
that's
the
right,
problem. And all of a sudden, I was like asking myself a lot of questions, like why is there so much discrepancies all around the world? Like things are out of focus.
yeah,
People are basically running around, uh, destroying everything.
yeah,
Nature and politics is not helping. Is not a good system.
yeah,
I've told Stephen Bassett also I know his vision in politics is great. He likes to lobby for the disclosure, but I don't believe that politics will solve this.
yeah,
If it's a whole other ball game.
yeah.
And
Especially these days. I mean, it's even gone farther adrift in the last couple of years.
yeah, yeah, but I know that people think in old-fashioned ideas.
Yeah,
And if you had a real encounter with extraterrestrials or interdimensionals,
yeah.
it's it will change. It's a game changer in that regard.
Do you think the intelligence is using people sort of on the street rather than the government? Because it would appear the government may know something, but that's why they watch you when you're in the crop circle or watch experiencers, is they really don't know what's going on. And to me, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the experiencers are just ordinary people who are actually interacting with the phenomena, and the phenomena couldn't care less about the government. They have no interest in the government at all.
Well, if you study the files, like I hear you have, I know that because I
Yeah,
read two of your books and they are fabulous. I love
thank
them,
you.
really.
Thank
And
you. Yeah,
um, you know the drip feeding situation.
yeah,
We have discussed that in the
yeah,
magic book.
yeah, yeah,
And I think the extraterrestrials they understand our predicaments at this point in history or in time. They understand that perfectly. They know what's happening. It's like The disclosure is like a child that's being born like in Space Odyssey. It's a small way. It doesn't have a lot of, how can you put this? It's painful.
Yeah.
The experience for our Earth, our people at this point, it's painful to accept that government is not really the way to go in this. Why is that so? Um, Government says we are responsible for you. You give us the money, and we set out rules, and we say you need a vaccine, you need this, you need that. But that's not correct, because every person is responsible for himself and for the world.
Yeah.
And if you, I studied also mythology, and
Okay.
King Arthur had an advisor, Merlin.
Yeah. Yeah.
Merlin said to him, if you lie in the world, if you have one lie and you put it out for purposes of your own selfish purposes, you murder one part in the world somewhere. And that's frequency, Grant, what he's
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
So that's a responsibility that every person needs. If we think, if we send, we are an antenna, and if we think, we are responsible, everybody. And the government has nothing to do with this, nothing. It's a lie. The government is basically a lie, but it's a practical lie for us still. And
Yeah.
politics is the same. And religion is an older system, but it's also the same
Yeah.
thing. They try to take the control out of our hands. So I think extraterrestrials, if you read the files, they have contacted Eisenhower. We have enough testimonials about that. So they have talked to governments, but they understand that it's not possible to go through to that way to reach the people. They need experiencers like you and me and other people. And we create consciousness in the world.
Yeah.
And it's a balance game. And I think at this point, the government and the money behind it, like the families that control the system, they understand that they are losing this game in time. They have no more time.
Yeah.
The truth is out there, and like the extraterrestrials said to Eisenhower and his crew, Macintosh was also present. That was one of the Vatican bishop, and I will talk about this later because it's important. Eisenhower, they said to him, if you can handle it, and this truth gets out that you're not alone in the world and in the cosmos, you will have a better place to live in. That was basically the message to the president. And yeah, I don't know. They have kept it under wraps all these years, 70 years, and now they are losing it.
Yeah.
If you see the military files, it's unbelievable what you read. The military, they are protecting bases with nuclear weapons, like the Rendlesham case.
Yeah.
And these guys know about it. The personnel, then the military personnel that's active at night, they see strange things and they say, "Oh yeah, it happens all the time." But this is not responsible to say, "Well, we have signed a paper. We're not talking about it." But they see it all the time, like the astronauts. They always see it.
Yeah.
So what are we doing with ourselves, Grant? What is the world at this point still doing? Is denying everything.
Mhm.
And that's going to change, I think. And I think you are also a player in that plan.
Yeah. I always look at I've moved, as you know, from government documents and stuff like that to because I had my own awakening experience with consciousness. So how do you see consciousness fitting into this whole thing that, you talk about this, thought system and the fact that you can interact with these beings just by thought. And so how do you see, is it important to the consciousness element to this whole thing? Is that what it's all about?
Yeah, this basically you have knowledge, then you have wisdom.
Okay.
And wisdom is the problem with wisdom is that you need to focus on yourself to get the wisdom. It's an inner process.
Okay.
And then you have knowledge, wisdom, and then you have consciousness. That's the third experience. And then you have transformation or enlightenment. These four are the four steps, and they work in cycle. Like you return to the knowledge fact, and then the wisdom again. But you need to delve into yourself at one point, because you're a microorganism in a macro universe. It's the
Yeah.
same. And every mystery school, if you study that process, they knew about it.
Yeah.
Why? Because the extraterrestrials have told them so in ancient times how to do it.
Yeah.
And you have the whole ancient alien affair on television, and there are beautiful shows, but I always would like that they would go deeper into some stuff, because it's there is more to tell, much more in that process. I don't know do you see me good, because it's getting dark here? Do I
Yeah,
need?
I can see you well. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Coming through good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the shows, they're sort of going at say a 7-year-old level, where they're trying to just sort of do the very basic things. I know when I was on Ancient Aliens, they basically said, we don't talk about that. Don't get into the inside baseball, and we just want you to tell one thing, and don't tell us the details behind it, because the details, they sort of, I guess they lose a lot of audience by doing that. So they're just sort of like hitting the high points, and people go, oh.
Yeah.
So I think that maybe what it comes down with you and I, and maybe that's what your experience is about, is that I had experiences, and I would be probably just as stupid as everybody else if I didn't have my experiences, the same as you had your experience at 8 years old, and you probably would be a different person if you hadn't had your experience. And the experience is what changes you.
Yeah, yeah. That's the game changer. For me, it was like a download.
Yeah.
I do I tell the story?
Yeah, oh yeah, for sure. Because that's always critical to me, is how people get into this thing, and how you actually come in. Because to me, I always see it as a sort of an interaction between the intelligence and people, where they sort of, oh, it's time for you to get moving, as if you've got some sort of agreement with them. And these things, I don't think are random. I used to think they were random events, and now I think they're not really that random as I thought they were.
There is a plan, I think.
Yeah.
I had that knowledge through the files. The files they're also part of the plan. That's really intriguing.
Yeah.
You have all these intelligence files, all these military files, all these government files, and then you have the experiencers.
Yeah.
Like in the 50s, Adamski
Yeah.
was a little bit carried away at some point, but there is truth to his.
Oh, absolutely.
Of course. Billy Meyer in the 70s, Travis Walton.
Yeah.
So all these things are part of a bigger puzzle, and it's shaped that way for us to do something with that process.
Yeah.
That's what I believe. And you need to see the bigger picture. And when I was 7, 8 years old, it started when I was 7. It started with an eerie feeling at night. I was sleeping.
Okay.
As a child, you sleep because you have no way of. It's like, okay, playtime is over. You go to bed.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, I had this dream every night, the same dream.
Wow.
And I know now I understand why. It was to make me conscious that something was off key, like hello, we're telephoning you or something.
Okay.
So I told my mother, I have the same dream every time. And she said, don't think about it. It's just a dream. You know the stories.
Yeah.
Typical. And at one point, it was so scary for me for not having to have the dream. So I made a solution for myself. I said, just don't go to sleep, Bart, and it's all solved.
Wow.
That's a kid.
And what was the dream? Can you get into the dream? What was were you dreaming?
The dream was I woke up.
Yeah.
And I was in a white zone. There was no dimension.
Yeah.
And I saw this large cube coming at me. And this cube was like overwhelming in vibration. It
Okay.
never crushed me, but it was close. and at the top of it, it bent over a bit, like a
Wow.
building. And I needed to get my grip on things, and I wanted to move away from the cube. And I was pressed down to the ground, and there was also white under me, a white area.
Okay.
And it was a tremor feeling, like, okay.
Okay.
So, and at sometimes the dream stopped. I woke up in sweat, and sometimes I was crawling from the cube in the white zone, and then I saw a bridge, just a bridge in a not dimensional zone with the flower at the center.
Uh-huh.
And I needed to pluck the flower for some reason, and I'm crawling to the flower, but I
Okay.
was scared, like the pressure was enormous.
Yeah.
And sometimes the dream stopped when I almost reached the flower, and sometimes when I just plucked it, then it stopped.
Wow.
And yeah, it was painful for me. I had bedwetting and stuff
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
the pressure. And as I said, I had a solution. Just stop sleeping, Bart. Don't go to sleep, like in Freddy Krueger style, the
Yeah. Yeah.
movies.
Yeah.
But let me make a little bit more light, Grant. I
Okay.
think it's getting dark here. One
Okay.
moment.
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah.
That should be better for you.
Yeah.
Was like,
Beautiful. Yeah. It looks good now. Yeah. It's not too bad, but it looks good now. Yeah. Go ahead. So this dream goes on for what, a year?
yeah, it was a year. Like, how do you say it? It was the same dream every time.
Okay.
Lucid dreaming. That's the word. Lucid dreaming.
Yeah.
And it was very active and very real. So I said, don't go to sleep anymore. And I remember we were living in a flat with my mom. And I was going to the couch in the living room with my blanket and my pillow,
Yeah.
singing songs, playing a little bit in the dark.
Yeah.
And of course, what happens is, as a child, you don't understand this, but you fall asleep without knowing.
Yeah.
And then it happened. I woke up in shock. I was like, my heartbeat. I can only describe this like your heartbeat. It's all the only thing that's you. And I saw the door to the corridor, to the hallway, to
Yeah.
the front door. The door was going open, and it was closing at an interval in time, the same interval, like it was the same
Yeah. Yeah.
thing that it opens and closes.
Yeah.
And the problem was, and that's when I knew something was different, the door squeaked at the daytime.
Oh, okay.
It was silent at that point. So I saw, oh my God, something is not good here. My heartbeat is beating, something is present. And then I saw a light in the hallway, like a little orb-like thing. And
Yeah.
it was really fast. It like zoom, and it came into my heart, like came
Wow.
to me. And then I was like completely zen, like everything is okay. And you get this, like this download in visions, in visualizations,
Wow.
and emotions. Like, so like tick, 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 it's coming in. I don't know what, all
Wow.
coming in. And I felt blessed. I felt like, wow, this is really a great feeling.
Wow.
So, and that was the first encounter with something, and that's also the reason why it's more like an interdimensional effect that you have, because
Yeah.
I didn't see a person
Yeah.
or a vehicle. And after that, it was all different for me, my entire life. I
Wow.
questioned things. I had trouble with teachers. I was a rebel. I studied early on. I studied history, mythology, folklore. I was searching to explain this experience, and I talked to people with it, and they always laughed and said, "No, it's not real, and it didn't happen. It's a dream."
Yeah.
And for some time I believed that. at one point, but it really changed then again because you know it happened.
Yeah.
And the only
Yeah.
conclusion that I had was to ease my mind at that point was it's an angel like in the Bible.
Okay. Okay.
And that lasted a bit, that idea. And of course, in further years, that angel became extraterrestrial, of course. Then I understood more. Like, of course, this is logical. It's not
Okay.
some religious thing that happened to me. I'm not like Mother Mary or something. It's just basically a pattern that's happening in the world. People are getting contact.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's how it happened when I was 8.
Did you have synchronicities or events? Because what I've had when I had my experience, it was like sort of it affected me different than other people that saw it. And when I look back, I see all these different synchronicities that started to appear where this would come in, this would come in. And when I look at it, it was like, it's almost like you're being led down this road and then this road. And you just sort of follow, you don't really realize that things are happening around you that, are like, especially synchronicities where you go like, wow, it's like, but I know as soon as I have those, I know you got to make a turn. You got to go towards this direction. It's basically telling you to make a turn.
Yeah, it's like something is planted in you,
Yeah.
a compass or something that, and all throughout your life, you get an activation.
Yeah.
And it started to get to me that this was happening was when I met the people that formed the group in Belgium. It
Oh,
was
wow.
too strange. It like the people came to you on the best time frames when you needed them
Yeah.
most. And I work I work a few hours in as a clerk somewhere, and all of a sudden a camera crew was standing next to me, and they asked me, can we have a little interview with you? I said, I'm here in the shop working a few
Yeah.
hours. And then they said, well, not going to take long. And they put the mic in front of me. I said, okay, it's no problem. And then they said, do you believe in extraterrestrials? How's that for synchronicity?
That's good. That's good.
That
Wow.
was strange.
That was about the time you started the group. That was what the group was in about 2010. You said
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
2010, we started to get things in place. I had enough
Okay.
people in Belgium that were interested in one the extraterrestrials, the phenomenon, two the files, three the Skywatch procedures, and then I said, okay, we can run with this. We have enough material, and it all went very smoothly. We had ups and downs, of course, like people that
Yeah.
at one point
Work.
people came in and, yeah, we want to be in your group, Bart. I said, yeah, we have a few protocols and we like to get to know you first. Yeah, but we know you have Ouija boards and you wake up spirits and stuff. I said, no, no. You have this thin line of people that are in the swamp, like the woo-woo swamp. You have to filter that out.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But we are pretty much uh, professional about it now, and we know what to do. The group formation it's a hard part, and I know a group in Michigan, the C5 group, and they do great work.
Yeah.
And there's one of
I
the
think I know
interviews,
who you're talking about.
yeah, and they have the same thing with group formation. You need
Yeah.
to take the numbers, the law of numbers. I don't know if you know that law, the cosmic law. That means you take a bucket with oysters,
Yeah.
and there's one pearl in one oyster. To
Yeah.
find it, you need to open them all. That's with people the same. You have to.
Yeah.
If you have 100 people, only 5 will stay.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
need to have the effort to talk to the 100 people and to do something with them.
and you have to have the vision in order to sort of keep it going. Because most people, that's why I always sort of like, people bring up Stephen Greer, that he's got this personality, whatever, and I say, if it weren't for that personality, he would have quit. Anybody else would have quit a long time ago. I mean, the stuff that he put up with. Sometimes you need a person with that kind of ego, and I'm not going to listen to anybody or whatever in order to pull it off, because you're going uphill most of the time. There's not like everybody's helping you and getting on board. It's a tough road that what you and I have chosen.
Yeah, it makes me laugh what you say, Grant, because I know perfectly what you're describing here.
Yeah.
People say to me, I have problems, and I say to them, you don't want my problems. I've been shouted at, harassed, everything. They don't like light workers, the people that are in denial.
Yeah. And yet when you have your experience, or I had my experience, it's like, as I said, I took tours when I had my sighting in '75 with Charlie Red Star. When I saw it, I just fell off the edge of the earth. I mean, I was like, whoa, like what? And the rest of the people all just went on with their life. It didn't affect them at all. I took lots of people saw it. And so that's where you sort of get, you mentioned before, once you get down that rabbit hole, you ain't coming out again, because I mean, it's affected you, and they've got you hooked, and you're off doing your thing. And it really doesn't matter what anybody says. It may affect you, it bothers you, but still that vision keeps you going. That, okay, it'll put you down for 1 or 2 days, you're kind of in the dumps, and then you're back at it again, because you've got that download or that vision or whatever it is that keeps you moving towards whatever it is you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah. They if you have real contact with extraterrestrials at one point in your life, the chances are very big that you are like a rock. Your character will form like a rock. And I don't mean like you don't have an open mind. That's not what I mean. I mean you are tested time and time again to stand up against the odds of lies and denial. You can take that. You understand that people have a difficult time with this, and still go on and say, no, you have the facts, people. The facts are correct. And okay, you're in denial. No problem. We are not here to persuade you in that.
Yeah.
We are just here to put out an example, nothing more. And if I want to go to a crop circle and put my gear out, then I will do that. If you don't want to come along, that's okay.
Yeah. In fact, you've got to be part of it. Otherwise, there's no point in you coming along. You're just going to ruin it for everybody else.
Yeah.
Be on the same page. And I agree with you there.
Yeah. And my team has it harder because I press on them to study files.
Okay.
Or at least talk about them, like the Cometa file of France.
Oh, yeah.
1999 is a very important cornerstone in our progress, in our work. The Cometa file is so good from a scientific point. It's so well studied. And we have a copy of it lying around all the time. And we just read to each other from it.
Yeah.
And stuff. Why? Not because we all know the information. Like the Rendlesham case, we all know the information. But you can have a sort of meditation on it also, a sort of focus that you use the material that's in there for other reasons, in deeper dimensional focus that you set out.
Yeah.
And that's why, like the book of Jim Peniston, The Rendlesham Enigma, I have it lying around here because that's really the most thorough file that I have seen at this point. Jim really got way out of line with this in positive ways. Every detail is in the book. And I talked to Pope about it because he also wrote a book on the file. And I think that these sort of things are now coming out for a reason, Grant.
Yeah.
Your stuff as well. The book about the drip feeding was so amazing for me to read. I have read it last year in France. I was in vacation. And the effort that you put out in that work to basically understand how the military operates to really get it out, but they can't. And they need people like Steve Spielberg, sorry,
Yeah.
and other artists to get it out. It's so logical.
Yeah. And I found through my experience, because I worked, as you probably know, I worked with Bill Moore a little bit. I knew him in the 1980s. He had a personality, very strong ego personality like Stephen Greer. And I realized that a lot of these people, even Pope, I was going to do an interview with Pope, and I got canceled out of the conference, but I was going to do an interview. Even Nick Pope, there's a story that he had an experience. It's very much like an abduction experience. He's never talked about it.
Yeah.
And you look at Jim Semivan, had the beings in his room. You look at Gary Nolan from TTSA, he had the beings as a young kid. And you realize that these people are getting triggered like you and I, or why Jim Penniston's story is so important. And the second book is coming out is simply on the download. The fact that everybody says, oh, he saw a craft, he put his hand on the craft, big deal. It's like he got this download, and when he starts explaining how complex it is, and it has all this inside mathematics and all these messages and stuff like that, they're going to write an entire book on just this download of ones and zeros, the same thing as you and I. So when I look at people, I always see that people are triggered by an event, almost like we've agreed to all be on this team. And at maybe you got it at 8 years old, I got it at 21 years old, Jim Penniston got it at 20 years old, or whatever he was, 25 years old, and that they wake people up at certain points and say, okay, it's time for you to go, and the person suddenly doesn't really know what they're doing, and off they go, and that's how they get the message out, because the aliens can't land either. They can't, say, here we are, because somebody's going to shoot them. So it's almost like the same sort of gradual disclosure where they use you and I to carry the message. And we may have been an alien at some point in past lives or whatever, that because you'll see a lot of experiences will talk about the fact that I believe that's my family up there. This is not my family here. They're my family. I don't feel like I'm from here. And they feel this very close association with whatever that intelligence is. And so that's where I look at it and I say, it's much more complex in terms of what's actually going on. And that's why I'm honored to talk to you and other people who have the vision, who have, like, to me, I see you as a person who was sort of given a role to play, and you're playing your role, and you're lifting consciousness to the point almost where we have with the TTSA, with the New York Times. Because I remember I wrote an article, and I'm not for sure it's in Magic, but it was the 64 reasons they've decided not to tell you the truth. And it was this idea of the stock market meltdown, people commit suicide, the religious people will all go crazy and that sort of stuff. And then what happened? When they released it in the New York Times, it said, oh yeah, the government is investigating UFOs. Everybody just went, yeah, I knew that already.
Yeah.
And you raised the consciousness to the point where nobody cares anymore. And I think it'll be the same thing when they come out and tell you there's aliens, they're going to go, yeah, I knew that already. Like, no big deal. And that's our job, is to raise the consciousness. So people, it's almost like gay rights or African-American rights or any of these things that they have a hard time. Everybody goes against them, and they raise the consciousness. And at a certain point, everybody goes, "Yeah, okay, it's whatever." It doesn't bother people anymore.
Here in Belgium, people contact me and they say, "Yeah, the weird stuff you're doing, and what is that? What is that all about?" and I say, I don't have to persuade you in anything. If you don't want to talk about it, we can have a beer and talk about something else. No problem. Yeah, okay. And then after 5 minutes, but tell me again, what is that all about? They are so interested. And I think at one point you have sort of a barometer in yourself where you say that is good to explain to that person, and that is good to explain to the other person.
Yeah.
Because the consciousness is different for each one.
Yeah. Everybody's at a certain level.
Yeah, and that's working well for me. Sometimes I just shut up, Grant. I just say nothing because I feel they're gonna crucify me here.
Yeah.
Like, you're telling the truth, but you're going to be crucified. And other points, they don't get enough of me. It's like they want every part of it and every knowledge that you know, and I have to stop them. Like, whoa, this is getting out of line.
Wow.
But I think
hopefully this helps that you get a little more exposure in terms of, do you have media that deals with any of your stuff, or do you have a newsletter? How do you work your organization in terms of trying to get the message out?
Well, Belgium is really on that. Belgium is an old country. What do I mean with old? They have old-fashioned ideas in terms of everything to do with what's not material. Yeah. They don't understand that. They think in terms of the king science, but old science, not new quantum physics, the old way, like Newton thinks the apple falls from the tree. Yeah, oh, that's science. Everything that's tangible is okay.
Sounds like Germany. When I talked to Robert, it sounds that way in Germany, where he's sort of going
Yeah,
uphill against the society.
you guys are way ahead of us, way
Yeah,
ahead. The Americans and in England, they are. England is also an older country with a large history, but they are really more open-minded, I think,
yeah,
because
yeah.
they.
They had a lot of mediumship and spirituality things, and
Yeah, yeah,
stuff like that, where everybody was sort of into it.
yeah,
And yeah, so England is like, I know I have a rabbit hole meeting that I have every second week, and a lot of British people show up because they're kind of interested. Americans get into a lot of conspiracy stuff, which I really don't get into conspiracy stuff.
not good.
But it's finding people like you that have got that connection of knowing that there's something beyond just the story. There's something behind the story, that people are being motivated and people are being led, and that I have something to do here, and that consciousness is a big part of it. I think that's important that these
Well,
people link up around the world.
to answer your question, Grant, we use our website, of course, and the website in Belgium is the everything that's spread out in the website needs to be factual based. It
Yeah,
needs to be based on facts.
yeah,
And I was very thorough in that from the start, from the get-go.
okay,
That if we need to elevate ufology, and now it's UAP, the terminology,
yeah,
if we need to do this, and we need to do it in a way that people can take a step from the woo-woo kind of thing. They don't, it's too large, the like consciousness, the word consciousness doesn't really get into people their minds. If you talk about spirituality, that's not good. And you need in the official website, we need to talk about facts and files and experiences that have a tangible effect, and little by little you can do a little bit in the other direction, but it needs time.
wow.
So that's one of the things we set out, the
And
website.
what's the website address? We're going to link all this, but just for people who are listening right now, what's the website address?
That's www, or how do you say in English, double the World Wide Web,
Yeah, yeah,
transology.be.
okay,
Yeah. And
good.
transology is a term, it is the study of transformation. That's why
Wow,
we've chosen that. The transformation, the study, like psychology. So,
wow.
and
That's
in
a good
early
term.
days, yeah.
I like that.
And officially, we have the the BUFOC, we say, the
Yeah,
BUFOC.
yeah,
That's the term that you, if you open the website, you see the Belgian UFO connection.
yeah,
So like MUFON, it's the same
yeah,
acronym.
yeah,
And we do this because it's in the international field. It's we get better known by that.
yeah.
And we also use a badge when we are working. We have this
Wow,
badge
wow.
always at our
That's cool.
heart here, because this is also the frequency we set out. If you see the colors,
Oh yeah,
yeah, and the sign here, like a sort of Star Trek
yeah,
sigil,
yeah, yeah.
that is important. And why is that? If we are working in the field or in England, and people stumble on us,
Okay,
I knew from the start, if we have some sort of legitimate badge, that people will say this is an organization and it's serious.
yeah, yeah.
And it's I think, I don't know if the extraterrestrials gave me that notion,
Might be. Yeah.
but
It's
it's
a good
real.
idea. It's a good
It's
idea.
because everywhere we go, people are like have a little bit of feeling of liberation when we arrive, like the little boy in the Daneberry crop circle.
Yeah,
He was like, oh, I have seen a strange thing. And my mom is like, yeah, it happened. Okay, you told me so. But now I have officials to talk about this. In his terminology, it's an official
yeah, yeah.
releasing point of that energy. He can just say what is the true story. And we absorb that energy for him. and he feels good about it. I have contacted the boy months later, and he was really glad still. He was feeling good about it, the whole
Wow.
affair. And and then I was thinking, Grant, what if when I was 8 years old or 10 years old,
Yeah.
what would be the effect when I was standing next to myself with that badge, somebody where I could talk to. So we have come a long way, I think, in the disclosure by doing things like this.
That's a good idea. Maybe we can do a show, you and I, when you are finished the crop circles, or maybe live from, when you're in England, if you can get an internet connection, and
Yeah.
we can do like a live thing. Because I've known some people that have gone. Did you run into other teams there for like from America, or people that are other crop circle research teams?
Yeah, we there are lots of active teams over there. Yeah,
Yeah.
they
Yeah, I'd love to do a live show, or just after you come back, and you can review what you discovered there, and maybe bring some of your team members on, and highlight the work you're doing. Because I think that's important work, that you would go to another country every year to do this very scientific research on what's going on there. Because everybody's interested in the crop circles, and it's sort of faded away in terms of the story. It's like people are sort of getting. It's not like it was in the 80s. I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, every story was crop circles. Now it's sort of like everybody says, it was hoaxed or whatever. So it'd be good to bring you and your team on after you're there, or while you're there, if you make a discovery, to highlight this, where it'll get a fair bit of attention if I cover it.
Yeah, we could do that. I even Peniston would join us in one of our trips. So
Wow.
we this could be very interesting to have connection with a lot of people like this.
Yeah. Oh,
So,
I'd love it. I mean, I could even invite, because I have a group. We have two groups. One's 700 and the other one's 400. But what we do is invite them to these. With Zoom, I can bring on hundreds of people at one time, and we just open the microphones for you and your team or whatever, and then people can ask you questions, and it gets across the internet, and it can be a pretty big presentation. So let's do that. When
yeah, yeah.
you should go, when June, to the crop
Yeah,
circles.
well, we're still in discussion about it now this year because of the virus thing,
Oh yeah,
and
yeah,
yeah,
that's right.
we all know that it's a mutation and
Yeah,
blah blah blah. We all know the story,
yeah,
but England is a little bit behind in the peak of that story.
yeah, yeah,
It could be that nobody gets in this
yeah,
year, the season. I mean,
yeah.
so we'll have to wait. Perhaps it
Okay.
will be next year that we can go. But
Yeah,
normally, at this point, I don't know. Normally, we go if we
yeah,
can. If we can get into England, we're there, of course.
yeah. That's right. I forgot about that. I never thought of it. Well, let's do it when, or if you have another big story that comes up, if there's something you want to cover or you want to advertise, something your group is doing, I'm willing, because I think you're one of the guys I need to cover in terms of being
Thank
on the forefront of what's going on. So let's do that, and
thank you.
hopefully you get in the crop circles. It would go June, maybe July. This still goes on in July.
Normally, we go the first week of July.
Okay. Yeah. See, that's going to be pretty close, because I know even now most of the events, I've got events in August that have been canceled here in America. Although America's really far behind in terms of the timing of the virus, but yeah, I know, I understand. So keep me in touch of what's going on there.
Yeah, sure.
And if there's any big events with your group that you want to advertise, we can come on here. Now you know how the Zoom thing works. If you want to show photographs and stuff, the Zoom thing, you can actually take over the screen, and you can show your photographs and do little presentations. And I'm happy to help you move your group along, and your message, because I think you're doing important work.
Oh, thank you, Grant. Likewise, uh,
Beautiful.
Belgium loves you here. Huh? Your books are not translated in Dutch, I believe,
No, I don't think so. No.
but most people that are into the UAP files can read English perfectly. So we are promoting the books, of course. I have
Well, if
shown
you want to do a thing sometime, sometimes I did it in Denmark, where you just set this up. I can set it up on mine, and you give everybody the link from your group. And if they want to ask questions, or you want me to do a presentation on something, I can do that. We do a lot of that, and we were actually ahead of the curve. We were doing this for about 5 years now, a lot of people now, they're doing Zoom because you can't, but the virus, you can't move around. But we've been doing it for years. And now Denmark does it. The Winnipeg group that I'm part of does it. The Toronto group does it. They have their monthly meetings on Zoom. They bring in, so anybody from around the world, and I always said that would be a good thing if you have your meeting or whatever and you broadcast it live, then someone says, okay, Tuesday night, Winnipeg's having their meeting, then Toronto on Wednesday night, and they have this, and Penniston's going to be on. He's going to be on in, Belgium. Oh, let's go to Belgium. And if you had all these groups, people would have every night, it's almost like a chart as to who's having a meeting and who's going to be in that meeting. And the online thing, it's almost like it was intended to help us, but we've been doing it, so we know how to do this. We know how to advertise, and we get some pretty high numbers on, especially if we go live Facebook. You get a lot of, you can have 7,000-10,000 people watching. So let's do some of that and try to move the ball down the field a little bit.
Yeah, and I'm dying to ask you this, Grant.
Yeah.
Are you currently working on another book?
Yeah, I'm actually working on a book now called Extraterrestrial or Maybe Not. So Jacques Vallée first brought this up. John Keel brought this up. Like Jacques Vallée said, I'd be very surprised if this turns out to be just extraterrestrials. And the more I look at it, the more I think, no, it may have an extraterrestrial component, but it's much more complex in terms of people who talk about the fact where when the being leaves the room, like you, it's a ball of light, and it changes to a ball of light, and then it disappears. And it comes in, it's a ball of light, and it turns into a flesh and blood alien. And I'm going like, if it's a ball of light, does it eat bacon, eggs, toast, and coffee in the morning, for breakfast? And you start to wonder, like, this is more complex. So you start to get into the ultra-terrestrials or the interdimensionals and stuff, and you start realizing that you have to go down, and again, you got to talk to the experiencers who have the experience like you of how is the intelligence interacting. Because I say, you can watch all the lights in the sky you want, but it's not until you talk to someone like Bart and me and people who've had the experience where these are the people that are interacting with the phenomena. The phenomena is dealing with these people. They're not dealing with the government so much. They're dropping pieces of metal or whatever. And you can have a piece of metal and it'll tell you, okay, this is not made on Earth, but that's all it tells you. Or if you see, a light in the sky, it tells you, yeah, this is probably not us, but it doesn't tell you what's actually going on. It's not until you talk to the people who are interacting with the intelligence, which I think you are. And that's where I think these people got to link up. And so that's what I'm doing is this book. And I go across even the thing where I look at the connection to the spirit world, because I have a guy that I just did an interview, Ron Johnson. And this guy we just did an interview for one of the groups, the Winnipeg group, with him. And we broadcast, it'll be out on the internet probably within the next week. And he talks about being in the spirit world where he goes into a building where the building is 10 times the size on the inside as it is on the outside. And as soon as he said that, I went, oh, that's Chris Bledsoe. Chris Bledsoe was inside the flying saucer, and he said it was 10 times the size inside. And then you see these connections. You're going like, what's really going on here? Because they're describing exactly the same thing in two different venues. Mm-hmm. And so I'm looking at all that weird stuff and basically listen to experiencers as to what are they describing, or like I go through the thing with the ETs where I say, people will ask, what did the alien look like? I always say, did he have clothes on? They go, no. Did he have sex organs? No. Did he ever get any older? No. Did you ask him if he was an alien? Yeah. What did he say? Not really. And so I start asking these weird questions, and the more I look at it, the more I think, yeah, this is right. This is something really profound is going on. It may have an ET connection, but it is much more complex than just an alien finding a way or getting lost in outer space and happening to end up on Earth. It's much more complex than that.
I think you're right on the money, Grant. The nuts and bolts theory is old. It's getting out of tune with all the things that we encounter, and the files match up with that perfectly. The military files, they like in the Rendlesham case, for instance, the Charles Halt, his experience, the UFO was looking in different lights. So that is not a normal craft like we can experience on Earth. That's not a flying plane. It's something different. They have other laws.
Yeah. And you see the thing where I look at the way when I look at the Belgium sighting, I look at the same as the Charlie Red Star, where it comes and it goes, hello, here we are, and it flies around, and then it goes away and doesn't get back again. And everybody sort of tells the story, retells the story. And with the Peniston story, the thing that impressed me really a lot there, because when I started in the 1970s, there was no crop circles. All there was these what are called ground traces. And Stanton Friedman used to say, these are the physical evidence and stuff. Well, ground traces haven't happened for 25 years. And when Jim Peniston tells a story, like we used to have, like they'd burn out a crop and they would leave these tripod marks. Well, it hasn't happened for 25 years. So what happened to the ground traces? When I had them, they're happening all the time. And it's like they moved to something else. So when Peniston described the craft and it's above the ground, he said he looked under it and there was no landing gear. And yet it left the tripod marks. And it's almost like it's leaving the tripod marks to make you think it's sitting on tripod, and it wasn't sitting on tripod.
That's a good one.
And that's the weird thing. So and that's the thing, is when you start looking at experiencer stories and you look at the weird aspects of the story rather than the average stuff, like the Betty and Barney Hill thing. When I see the Betty and Barney Hill thing, I say, they had baseball hats on. Like, why did they have baseball hats on? There's something wrong here. They're telling us something. You look at these little weird things in the story and start to try to figure out what is really going on here. Almost like it's like sometimes people will describe when they're having a vision and they're under regression and they can't really say, and the regressionists will say, walk up closer and take a closer look. What is it really? And then they go, oh, now I know what it is. It's like you think, but it's not really what you think it is. That you can control the phenomena, you can manifest the phenomena. Your consciousness is a big part of what you're seeing, and that it all goes through your conscious mind. And so because you think you saw something doesn't mean that's actually what it was. Same as the table isn't solid, and there's no red color. It's all like quantum,
Yeah, sure. It's correct, I think.
Yeah.
What I've learned also is that we are not in control, really.
Exactly.
They
Yeah.
are in charge over us.
Yeah.
And I think
that's where I see the pattern I see is that they're basically turning the pages of a book. Because I always say to people, if you think that what happened now happened in 1975, give your head a shake. It was a totally different world. It was believed that it was a random phenomena, that you only saw one UFO. And even then you were considered crazy. But if you said, I've seen 10 UFOs, they would go, come on. I mean, how could you have 10 UFOs? I mean, because they thought it was a random. Now we know it's not, that certain people will see it all the time, that the phenomena is interacting with them. And it's, to me, it's almost like the whatever the intelligence is turning the pages of a book. Okay, now we're going to, because angel hair in the 50s, 60s, 70s, they had angel hair. They hadn't been angel hair for 50 years. So they had angel hair, and then the crafts looked like Adamski crafts, and then they looked like flying saucers with a dome. Then they became triangles, and it's like, okay, let's do something different now. Let's do this. Let's show them this, and we're just watching them as they turn the pages of a book, and they're moving us down the road and raising consciousness as they do it.
Yeah, I had this one weird experience with I was doing ESP, extrasensory perception.
Okay.
Extrasensory, and all of a sudden I got visions of Nazi Germany.
Okay.
And Hitler spoke of Lebensraum, room to live in.
Okay.
In his book.
Oh.
And I got this vision that it was not really the East, but it was space that he was referring to.
Wow.
And the strange thing, when we all know Werner von Braun and the V2 rockets, and they are trying to reach the moon, basically after the war, they get to paperclip the scientists in America, and they just put the crosses from Germany off it, and it was a rocket for NASA. NASA.
Yeah.
But the other thing that came to me was that the Holocaust was a way to get a free ride to experiment on people to get in space. That the Germans were trying to have a lot of people to experience on. It's criminal, of course. It's not the way to do it. But that was what Germany was trying to do, was to get into space and live there.
Yeah. And a side note to that, von Braun was very good at ESP. He financed the first remote viewing stuff for SRI. It was von Braun. He was using Russell Target, an ESP machine, that tester thing, and von Braun was very good at it, he said.
Yeah, I believe so. And they,
Yeah.
the German scientists, they all said that they got help from above.
Yeah.
They were referring to the interdimensionals or the
Yeah.
extraterrestrial.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah.
Very interesting.
It's much more complex than people think it is. So you and I are in the leading edge, and let's work together and let's see what we can do
Sure.
to sort of make it a better place and more understanding to people as to what's actually going on.
Yeah, okay, we should do that.
Beautiful, Bart. Thank you very much, and
All right.
make sure you let me know if you want to do a little thing where I can do a presentation for your people and they can ask questions, or
Yeah,
if you've got something you want to advertise. And definitely the crop circle thing I'd like to do, where I'll bring a whole pile of people on if you want to when you come back from crop circles this year or next year, and we'll do it where people can ask you questions and your team can be on there and describe what you guys discovered.
okay, we'll do that. Just a practical question for the
Yes.
recording. Is that like in Skype, it just comes on Zoom, the recording?
In terms of like, if once you close down your Zoom, your window will open up and it'll say processing, and it's going to process a video file, an audio file, and a
Okay.
file for the chat. Although we didn't use the chat, but if you're doing a chat thing, it'll do all three. It'll automatically put it on your computer, and you just open it up. You got audio and video, and it
Oh,
works pretty good.
yeah, because it's a great interview, and I would love to get people to know you better also.
Beautiful. Okay, let's work
Okay.
together, stay in touch by email, and let's set up something else to do. Work together from Canada to Belgium. Thank you very much, Bart. I
Great.
appreciate
Yeah. Thank you
your
very much.
efforts and your taking time to talk with me today. Thank you.
Good thoughts to you, Grant.
Okay.
See you, hear you soon.
Okay.
Bye.
Okay. You can turn the video off at the
Yeah.
bottom, or the record. Just do the record.